ओ ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। परमानन्दमाधवम्। ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एधि वेदस्य म आणिस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधीतेन अहोरात्रान् संदधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्माम् अवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम्। ओम शांति शांति शांति। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा जिह्वे पिबस्वामृतमेतदेव गोविंद दामोदर माधवेति। हे कृष्ण हे यादव हे सखेति। हे कृष्ण हे यादव हे सखेति। हे कृष्ण हे यादव हे सखेति। नारायण नारायण नारायण। वर्स नंबर 62 and 63। ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः संगस्तेषुपजायते संगात् संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशः बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः संगस्तेषूपजायते संगात् संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशः बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति. Bhagwan Shankaracharyaji's bhashya on these verses. First, I'll read the connecting bhashya from verse number 61, and what Bhagwan Shankaracharya has transitioned and connected the verse 62 to 61. He says, "Atha idanim para bhavishyatah sarvanartha moolam idam uchyate." Now I'll read the bhashya of 62 and 63 before we move on to the meaning. ध्यायतः चिन्तयतः विषयान् शब्दादि विषय विशेषान् आलोचयतः पुंसः पुरुषस्य संग आसक्तिः प्रीतिः तेषु विषयेषु उपजायते संगात् प्रीतेः संजायते समुत्पद्यते कामः तृष्णा कामात् कुतश्चित् प्रतिहतात् क्रोधः अभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः अविवेकः कार्याकार्य विषयः क्रुद्धो हि सम्मूढ़ः सन् गुरुम् अपि आक्रोशति सम्मोहात् स्मृति विभ्रमः शास्त्राचार्योपदेशा हित संस्कार जनितायाः स्मृतेः स्यात् विभ्रमो भ्रंशः स्मृत्युत्पत्ति निमित्त प्राप्तौ अनुत्पत्तिः ततः स्मृति भ्रंशात् बुद्धेः नाशः कार्याकार्य विषय विवेका योग्यता अंतःकरणस्य बुद्धेः नाश उच्यते बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति तावद् एव हि पुरुषो यावद् अंतःकरणं तदीयं कार्याकार्य विषय विवेक योग्यं तद अयोग्यत्वे नष्ट एव पुरुषो भवति अतः तस्य अंतःकरणस्य बुद्धेः नाशात् प्रणश्यति पुरुषार्थ योग्यो भवति इत्यर्थः. Supreme Consciousness Bhagwan Krishna, after elaborating on many verses on the self-control, brings Arjun to a point where he starts to talk about what happens to a seeker when he or she is not alert and vigilant. Now he elaborates in the verse number 62 and 63 something in spirituality we call as ladder of fall. Now, why the ladder of fall, and where that mistake happens, what inadvertence happens, what losing of alertness and vigilance happens for a person to fall down from the spiritual path completely, Bhagwan Krishna, Supreme Consciousness Bhagwan Krishna, has very, very beautifully expounded in these verses 62 and 63. Now, this verse, while I gave you the literal meaning in the last session, has many more detail to talk about. Bhagwan has covered in a particular sequence because the student there is Arjun. But we are also going to dwell deeper into these verses and see the connecting portions of what Bhagwan has said into much detailed level of what exactly happens in the internal nature of us, in the internal character of us, in our inner equipments of us, that why a seeker who is a dedicated seeker till a point in time where did that turn comes where the seeker loses alertness and vigilance, and because of that his whole spiritual effort is gone. Now, before I go into these verses, there are some points which I want to mark, okay, and I'm going to touch through when I talk about these verses. Even though the ladder of fall Bhagwan has explained here, yes, as the way Bhagwan has explained, this is what usually happens when a seeker loses his or her alertness and vigilance in life in pursuit of spiritual studies, and this is what happens there. But one more important thing you need to remember is that some people, by listening to this ladder of fall, says that nothing is working, and if this ladder of fall is there for even those people who are seeking, then why should I even put effort there? That means I lose everything. That's why I'm telling you, please don't conclude like that, because that's not a correct understanding at all. Whatever spiritual practices have been done for a seeker, even though, this ladder of fall, Bhagwan explains that the person falls down from the spiritual path. But remember, whatever knowledge has been gained, it's not that it gets wiped out. So I'm just marking those points first itself, so that you see these two verses in the light of what Bhagwan wants to explain. The call of Bhagwan, because the topic currently undertaken or Bhagwan is elaborating upon, is self-control. Please don't forget that the topic which is currently going on is self-control. And why Bhagwan inserted these two verses in the series of self-control verses? Because Bhagwan, I told you, has paid too much importance, or rather Bhagwan has given so much importance, not too much, so much importance to self control. Why? Because self control is actually one of an important facet. It is an important brick in the whole creation of construction of this whole building of spirituality for each one of us. Because that is there, just to highlight the why Bhagwan is giving importance, Bhagwan has inserted these two verses where Bhagwan is explaining, just because you have started setting on a spiritual journey, you started listening to spiritual talks, you started studying spiritual scriptures, don't be too complacent and relaxed that now everything is hunky dory, and don't get into this wrong ego also, that nothing can touch me at all. Now I have reached a stage where I cannot fall. Remember, you are part of this nature, and mind has its own way to play games when it wants in terms of spiritual achievement. So it is very, very important that we must remember are these things. Why Bhagwan is laying so much of importance to these verses? Because Bhagwan is inserted these two verses of ladder of fall purposively to teach us that self-control is something which we must and must focus upon if you really want to grow in spirituality. And why that thing is there? Because ultimately you have put an effort towards it. Just because you lose your alertness and vigilance, and you should not fall down and lose the effort of the opportunity of gaining spiritual pinnacle in this life itself. Why I highlighted this life itself, and just think at the background there was an ambulance noise also going on. So I think probably that is also one way of Bhagwan to highlight why it is so critical and important for us to pay an attention towards this ladder of fall is something which Bhagwan has explained, that this is what the trajectory man goes to just fall down from that level. And why I said it, that it is not something that you're going to lose spirituality completely. Please mark my word which I said. Bhagwan is put these verses. Why? Whatever you gain spiritually, you will definitely continue even if you don't end up completing in this life. But that is not what Bhagwan's motive is. Bhagwan is giving a clarion call to us, the mankind, that why over small things lose a big possibility of gaining spiritual pinnacle in this life itself. Yes, Bhagwan knows that whatever spiritual gain you have done, even though you have the knowledge you have gained, it's not gonna get wiped out completely. Yes, even if you're not able to achieve, or you had to leave this life if in between without completing the spiritual journey, there is nothing to worry, you will continue in the next life. But that doesn't mean that let's be completely careless, let's be callous about how we walk about, where we sit, what we talk, what we watch. That is what I'm talking about, losing the alertness and vigilance in life. So Bhagwan is wanting us to pay utmost importance to this particular topic, that self control is definitely important, but you should know the negativity also, where the seeker who was absolutely an effortful seeker, who was putting all his efforts into gaining spiritual strength, gaining spiritual stamina, what happens that at this life itself, even though he or she could have gained, but is not able to reach there. Bhagwan is highlighting that, so that we pay attention to these, and we carefully look at us. And I tell you one thing very honestly, in the last session also I said that Introspection is something which is utmost important for a seeker. And remember, two things really pays very well if you really want to grow in spiritual arena. One is daily prayers. You are growing in love and devotion for God. And the second is introspection. Of course, us added on factors will be, continually do punya and other things also. That is there. But I'm saying these two things are very, very critical. And I will tell you one more thing on this front itself, since we are on that topic here, that the meditation which is taught outside, or the kind of meditation which is actually taught, all these steps are important for, or developing introspective abilities. When we say be a witness of what? Of course, was when we gain spiritual realization, there the witness principle also is different. There the witness is that we are the self and we witness everything around. That is, we completely disconnected from everything. Till the time we reach there, that witness principle in meditation should be used to witness yourself. What kind of thoughts arise in you? What kind of behavior gets importance in you? What are the kind of things you chase after during your day, during your life? Are there some things to be improved to correct your chase in life? Maybe you are chasing wrong things in life. Maybe the things you are chasing are not going to lead you anywhere. Maybe you are in a very completely wasteful journey in life. Maybe you are actually wasting your time in life. Those type of corrections are one thing which we must do, develop during our introspective abilities. That is what the witness principle is all about. Now let's come into the topic here. Before I go elaborately, I picked up the literal meaning in the last session. I'll start that first, because this verse is definitely going to take one or two more sessions, because there is so much detail to it. You will think that those verses which have knowledge, which we are taking elaborately, we can understand why ladder of fall also need to be so much elaborated. The reason being that we need to understand what is the kind of point Bhagwan is trying to bring up. What are the kind of things which Bhagwan is bringing up, and we want to connect it to the current world and see and connect the dots, that is there more to it? Is there more to understand this? Is that a real depth of what Bhagwan has said? We want to try and achieve the maximum depth of what Bhagwan is trying to say here. So let's go and understand the literal meaning here, which I also mentioned in the last session also. Bhagwan says, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha. When a man thinks of objects, it starts with thinking of the object. Sangahate Upajayate. What happens when we continuously think on the objects? When I say objects, please understand objects, relationship, people. You can think, you put all of them together. Don't only go by objects. I'm just objectifying all of these things. Now, I also wanted to say, since I'm on this topic, I'll say, in our session of podcast, whenever I use the word object, please, I'm just repeating again, whenever I use the word object, please put all the other thing outside of self into that bracket of objects. I'll use the word which we say in Sanskrit. It, apart from Atma, which is the self, everything else in Sanskrit is coined in one word called Anatma, whatever is not the self. And whatever is not the self will always fall under the category of objects, because rest everything is objects, including in my body, us, and everything also. Okay, only the self within us is the subject, rest everything is object. So when I say, hey, objects, you please put everything else in the world outside of your own core self into that bracket of objects. So it says is sanghate upajayate. When what happens when we continually think of objects, attachment for them arises. This I'm talking about literal meaning. Sangat sanjayate kamah. From the attachment which has already developed in us by continually thinking over the object, what happens? The subsequent thing which happens is desire is born in us to actually gain or get that object. Sangat sanjayate kama. Then the further thought process of what comes within us after we gain a desire is, from desire arises anger. Kamat krodho abhijayate. Krodha abhijayate. So from desire arises anger. If there is an object of deep desire or burning desire in you, and whosoever creates an obstacle for you to gain that object, trust me, it is natural that anger will automatically come for those who are trying to block it or who are trying to create obstacle for you to gain that object. Also, another part of the krodha or the anger is, if the same object becomes an object of liking of someone else also, there you go. I don't have to say it. You can all look back into your own life and see how it works. Bhagwan says then further in the 63rd verse, Bhagwan says, krodhat bhavati sammoha. From anger, it is for sure that what comes out is delusion. The intellect and memory starts to get deluded. Intellect starts to get deluded. Sammohat smriti vibhramaha. From delusion, what happens? Our memory starts to get blocked, or I would say our memory, whatever is remaining in the memory, is inaccessible to us, which we coin with a word in our science called loss of memory. Right? Loss of memory means it is inaccessible to us. What do you mean by loss of memory? There are two kinds of loss of memory. One is loss of memory that is a total loss, it cannot be restored. Okay, that loss I'm not talking about. Even when the memory, whatever is lying in the memory, becomes inaccessible to you, you will always call, I don't remember, I'm not able to recall. It's called loss of memory only. Anyway, that's Bhagwan says, from delusion comes loss of memory. Smriti Bhramshat Buddhi Nashaha. Now remember one thing very clearly. The moment memory, the things lying in memory is inaccessible to you, the next thing is that intellect loses its ability to function. Because intellect functions how? That's why you will see in the Antakarana Chatushtaya, we have paired the Chitta and Buddhi and Chitta into one, and Man and Ahankar into one. Amongst the Antakarana Chatushtaya, when we talk about the four things, there are four things there: mind and ego, which is Man and Ahankar, and Buddhi and the Chitta, which is memory. Both of the things are there. So apparently, the intellect functions on the basis of data provided by the memory. Intellect cannot function without the data, right? So the data house is actually memory. The moment one loses its memory, or the things lying in the memory is inaccessible, it is but natural the intellect will lose its ability to function. That is what Bhagwan has mentioned as buddhi nasha. Bhagwan has used the word, it's very strong word. Bhagwan says his intellect is destroyed from the loss of memory. And when he says intellect is destroyed, means the discriminative ability is destroyed. This discrimination power is gone, which is what is destruction of intellect. Right? And from destruction of the discriminative ability or the intellect, so to say, buddhinashat pranakshati. This man perishes. This human being perishes. Not man or woman here. So when I say man, I'm talking about human being here. So this human being perishes. That's what is the literal meaning of this verse, which we also saw in the last session. Let's go deeper into the meaning now. Now, Supreme Consciousness Bhagwan Krishna, taking further the topic of self-control, in these is two verses, Bhagwan is trying to address key points for discussion for us, key points for discussion for all of us to think over, to know and think over. Before we get deeper into these verses, there are certain theories which are available in the worldly education system, which I must bring out for you to make you understand this a little bit deeper. The theory which I'm going to bring out is from management principle. One management principle which is there's a theory in the management, in the business management arena, which is called the theory of adoption. Now, I would need to explain you the theory of adoption first, because Bhagwan is talking on similar line. I would say theory of adoption has somewhat taken certain principles from these verses. Not Bhagwan has taken from the theory of adoption. Don't consider that. So, theory of adoption, which is currently available and taught in the business management arena, in the MBA sector, in the management studies, is something which will will help you understand how our intellect functions vis-a-vis the external objects. Okay. Now, I'm talking from Dhyato first, because I have to tie back to the verse first. For any human being, so to say, thinking of an object does not happen immediately. It's not something which happens accidentally. Okay. It's not something which happens instantly. There are certain things which is prior to the thinking of the object also, which is why I brought out the theory of adoption here. And I really say it's not something which I am bringing out, and all the credit of helping us understand this verse actually goes to my Guruji Swami Subodhanandji, who has explained it so well to us. The way he tied back to the actual management example was so easy for us to grasp what is actually happening, because these management studies principles and all, most of us must have studied. And actually, when I explain it to you, you'll realize most of us are already using it also, by the way, in our daily life, knowingly or unknowingly. That's a different thing. So what I mean to say is for for anybody to think on a particular object, it does not happen instantaneously. It does not happen at a spur of a moment. It is not something which is accidental. There is something which happens before that also, which we need to understand. Before even a person thinks on the object, what are the things which happens? And this theory explains the same thing. First, what happens is, as the primary step is, a human being, a man, accepts an object first. First is in acceptance for the object. For any new object to be accepted, before the thinking and all happens, the first thing in which has to go as a preset of even accepting the object is that that object, it needs to be known by this person. So first the person has to know about an object. So the first step which comes in initial, before even dhyato happens, is first we come to know of an object. Okay. What do we know of that object? We know what is that object and what is it used for, or was what is it useful for. And this is where, in the current scenario, advertisements play an important role. What do the entire advertisement industry is doing this only to you. Advertising industry is making you aware of a product first, right? How do you come to know? When you go to a market to buy a product, you call them by name. How did you know the name? There are so many companies available. This is out of advertisement. That's what advertisement uses us in the current and today. Acha, now if you even know an object, how is it going to be helpful for you? That's why just merely knowing the object means what? That they make you aware of the object by way of telling you what is that object going to be useful for you for first. And the second intent behind that is that object should should be made attractive to you. You should feel attraction towards that object. Okay, I'm not talking about sangha here yet. Please remember that I'm just bringing out in the correct sequence here. They will first tell you the utility of that object. What is that object going to be useful for you for? Number one. Second is that they will try to make that object look attractive to you. And third thing is that they will try to tie back with that, showing you certain aspects that how that object is going to be useful for you. Okay. So first they will talk about general utility of the object. Second, they will try to make it attractive for you. The third thing is that they will try to sell a point that this object is definitely going to be useful for you. Utility also for you also they have to tie. Na? One is general utility of the object, at making it attractive. So when the moment your first click window of attention to that advertisement will be when that general utility of the object actually clicks you, number one. The second is you feel that their advertisement is very good. That's why they pay so much for film stars and all to do their advertisement, so that attraction portion can be built out from there as an added on advantage to the product, by the way. Okay, and then the second thing is, it will force you to think, and they'll show you some commercial in a way that the utility is also shown to you, so that you can think that if that utility is being driven by them, the same will go for me, how good it will become. What happens is, meaning what I mean to say here is that it will generate something called the second step, which is it will generate something called a usefulness in your mind, or it will generate what I said in the previous verses I spoke about. It will generate something called shobhan buddhi in you. Shobhan buddhi means that this thing is going to add beauty to my life. There you go, that's the second step amongst this entire theory of adoption. So first is knowing the object. The second is attaching in this fact, this thought to that object, that this object is going to definitely beautify my life or going to add beauty to my life. Then that person and will try to do the third step, which is called assessment of that object. What level of assessment will that person do? Now remember one thing, there are some people who are haphazard buyers. Please remember, I'm not talking about them. So there are, when I say haphazard buyers, mean what? They are accidental buyers. Means what? They will buy it first and then they will check the utility, whether it is useful also or not. Then they'll regret afterward. I don't know why I bought it, why I wasted my money. If people have a lot of money to spend on luxury, it's a different thing altogether. I'm not talking to that at all. So here Bhagwan says that this third thing which happens is called assessment of the object. I'm talking about person who has intellect left to think. Those persons will do this way, that they will do assessment of that object. What level the assessment is done, that whatever usefulness or utility is shown in the advertisement, is that product really up to that mark? Is it actually the way it is being shown? Is that much useful? Is it important for me in my life? Is it useful, well, the way it has been shown in the advertisement? And also along with that, is it really important for me in my life? Then the third level of assessment is that, do I have enough purchasing power to buy it? The third, in within that itself, well, the other level will the assessment in the third level of assessment will be, the assessment will be according to my pocket, whether my pocket supports, or the amount of money I have supports its buying for me, or is it something which is outside my reach completely. Then, and it will be that once I can and see that of course I have money, I may not have too much dearth of money, but I think I can buy. Then that level will be, is it really going to be that useful if I spend so much money from me? This assessment is called the third step according to the theory of adoption. This is what we need to understand here, that these three steps become in series for the theory of adoption. Once this object passes in my assessment, or in my assessment it comes to a level of decision that yes, this is according to my my utility, according to the utility shown in the television and or in the advertisement, it is useful for me, and it is it is good to have for me also, and I have that much money to spend on it. Then comes the further process of it, that it converts into a desire to gain that object. And in the beginning, that desire is not that much strong to push me, or pull me towards buying, push me towards or spending, splurging on that. It is not that much strong on that I would go ahead and run after it only. Then what happens is this person, if he's intellectual enough, he's a thinker, slowly, gradually, carefully tries to put this object of desire, where he has got that desire, to see if it actually useful, by trying it in utility also. It tries to put that into utility and see if he can actually want that object or not. So slowly, gradually, the mind tries to engage with that object to try to see the utility of that object in the personal life. And it tries to, many times you can't go and test the object and throw it away, but there are some times where you can test someone and be distance also, test some objects and give it back also. So this, what happens is, try to put into the utility in life and see whether actually is this really good for me or not. If that good for me feeling strengthens, or if there is it is a certified that this is definitely good for me, or it comes and he sees, experiences himself that at this object is good for me, then what happens, that desire to gain it becomes stronger. Okay, may not be possible for external objects all the time. I told you, we don't have buy, use it and give back. That policy doesn't apply so much in India that much. But yes, as for many things, it is applicable that we try to see if this thing works or not. That is also the way you can see this particular verse, if it really works for me or not. And then I'll assess very carefully, it goes correctly for me or not. Then I'll decide whether I want to continue engagement with that thing also, or I want to just drop it. Then once this desire to gain it or get it becomes stronger, then at that point in time, man has reached a stage where this person will put wholehearted effort to gain that particular object. And wholehearted effort, it pays that at the end this person gains the object, and finally starts to have that object as a thing of utility, or thing of continuous engagement in one person's life. Now, since I brought out this theory of management here, and it sounds very good also, and many places it is correct also to that extent, but I should bring out the drawback in this theory also, or the lacking in this theory also, which I should bring out before I go further. Looks very good, theory looks very good, but where this theory also goes wrong sometimes is, what kind of mistakes can happen in within this theory also. To start with, just think, if the information of the product or the object you have is wrong, is incorrect, is incomplete, is misleading, which also many advertisements are misleading, by the way. And in the advertisement worlds, many of them are misleading, no doubt about that there can be misleading advertisements also. So once you have a misleading advertisement, that means the knowledge about the object become incorrect. Okay, there is a error in your knowledge of the object first. And if the knowledge of the object is incorrect, and on that incorrect knowledge you have developed a thought that this is going to add beauty to my life, that the Shoban Buddhi which have created, that also becomes wrong. Okay, the third thing which are that, since the knowledge is wrong, knowledge about the object is wrong, and you have attached to that wrong idea of that object, like something called it adds beauty to your life, the Shoban Buddhi, that means your assessment, which is the third step, is also going to be wrong, right? There is a possibility that the assessment is also wrong, because the advertisement misled you. You understood, you thought that whatever has been told in the advertisement is correct only, and on those terms you developed something, you just bought that idea and attached that this is going to add beauty to my life. And then you try to assess according to your, or what is your spending power, utility, and all those things. Since that basic thing was, the first step was incorrect, all the other steps will also become incorrect, right? Now just also think another possibility there, even if all the steps are correct, then also sometimes we are not able to adopt, or able to get that object to our life, because maybe our efforts were lacking, we did not put complete efforts. Even if efforts are not put completely, then also gaining that object is a far-fetched dream. It may not happen at all. The real thing is actually this principle, the theory is correct only, but following that principle, while following that principle, there are many mistakes which can happen. Now, why I brought out, you will think why I brought out the theory of adoption here. In spiritual world also, this theory is applicable, by the way. This theory is applicable in the spiritual world also. How? I'll tell you now. For gaining spiritual knowledge and gaining, spiritual enlightenment, gaining spiritual heights, also what you need to do is, first you need to know about them. Without knowing, you won't go into spirituality, right? Somebody has to tell you, somebody has to, you have to come to know from some sources. All those people who are associated with our podcast, and they do, connect with me over messages, whether group or personal also, they all come back to me and tell us that many of them come, not all, many of them come back and tell us that, oh, we didn't knew that Gita ji had so many things for, or real life living. There it's so much detailed that it's actually applicable in our current life also. We thought that Gita ji is some scripture given by Bhagwan in Dwapar Yuga, how it is going to be applicable in Kali Yuga, in the current arena, which is of science and technology. Trust me, Gita ji is an evergreen science. Till the time this creation is there, Gita ji's applicability will exactly be the same, will always be of paramount importance for the entire human race. Gita ji is something which will teach you how to live, irrespective of which yuga you are in, irrespective of which time you are in, irrespective of which arena you are trying, irrespective of which religion you follow, irrespective of which country you are living in. It is as much applicable to the whole humankind. It is applicable to the whole human race, so to say. Everyone, irrespective of caste, creed, and religion. So, even for or the spiritual sciences also, first you have to know about it. First, you have to know about the, you know about the spirituality first. That what spirituality is going to give you and what spirituality is all about. This knowledge that what spirituality does, what spirituality is useful for, how is it going to be helping me. Because of that only, Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda actually established Chinmay mission when he came out of Swami Tapovanji's tutelage. When he came out, under his Guru Swami's, our Param Guru Maharashtra Swami Tapovanji, after he studied, he came out and set out to spread this knowledge into the common man, so that we are all able to gain from what Sanatan Dharma wants to teach us. And he went all over the world. He set up mission in so many countries, so to say. That was the reason why he set up the mission, so that it can start this series of lectures and talks on spirituality, so that people can know what it contains. Unless and until you know, even I'm just giving you one more example for you to know. Even once a child, crosses, or reaches the class 10th, before the 11th and 12th comes into play, the child first sits down and assesses what all is available and where does that child want to go. Depending on that, in the 11th and 12th, the child chooses among between science, commerce, and arts, depending upon where that child wants to go, what that does that child want to achieve. So it's always starts from knowing first. There are some children who are hell-bent that I want to do medicine. They start their preparation for the NEET and all the relative exams, or whether GRE or whatever exams we talk about. All of them, they start at, while they move into the class 11th, before, or they go into the class 11th, they've already decided what they want to do. and they make an effort in the class 10 so that they can get that stream, and they already start preparing before that. So for spirituality also, why so many people are not able to turn towards spirituality? Because they don't know what spirituality is about. They don't know what spirituality can do for you. They don't know why spirituality is important for us. As I told you before, also, Puja Gurudev only at one place said, please remember, we are not human beings trying to do spirituality. We are actually spiritual beings trying to lead a human life. We have got this human birth. We are not human being yet. We only have a human body. You just see around the world, you will know many of them in the human body are worse than animals. What to talk about? Where have they become human being? In our scriptures bring out very clearly, we have got only human body. In this body, we have the ability to deserve a human life next. We also have the ability to fall down worse than animal life also. Both options are with us. We have to make it. So Puja Gurudev set up these mission and all those things, and all these ashrams in the world by so many great saints have been set up. Why? So that this series of this dissemination of knowledge or sharing of spiritual knowledge happens every now and then. It's not something which is limited to a few. And in today's world, the best use of science and technology and media and all those things is that you go to YouTube and other media channels, you have no dearth of unnecessary things also. I'm not saying useless, huh? Unnecessary things also. There is no dearth of useful things also. There is no dearth of necessary things also. But the choice is yours. Don't blame science and technology. Science and technology can be used and put to correct use also. Science and technology can be one channel to drown also. Drown as in to fall down on the vertical path also. Science and technology can also be put to correct use of gaining and climbing on the spiritual path also, on the vertical growth also. Option is ours. Don't complain that there is so much available, I got caught up. The choice is yours. You should know how to make choice. So all these ashrams and all have been started by great saints, so that the series of talks and lectures and sharing of knowledge can happen. Only sharing of knowledge will make you aware what it contains. First, people have to know what Gita Ji contains. What is Ramayana trying to tell us? What is actually Mahabharata trying to teach us? People have to know first. Generally what happens is people know only this much about dharma, about religion, that especially I'm not comparing other religions to Sanatan Dharma for a reason. I'll explain you as I move along this verse. Puja Maharaj Shri Swami Akhandanand Ji also said that very clearly one place, but I'll bring it up as I move along. On that, many people don't even know about dharma correctly, about Sanatan Dharma correctly, about Hinduism correctly. They think that this dharma is Sanatan Dharma is talking about certain rituals to be followed from time to time, certain festivals to be celebrated, the process to actually celebrate festivals. They don't know that Srimad Bhagavad Gita, given by Supreme Consciousness Bhagwan Krishna, is a well thought after, articulated science of life. How many people know this? You tell me. Many people are not even aware of this. Because they are not aware of this, that's why now they are not able to come forward to do this. The biggest task of all these ashrams which are set up by great saints, including Puja Gurudev, is that they are serving God. How they are serving God? They are serving God by giving this nectarian knowledge of spiritual upliftment, nectarian knowledge of freeing themselves from the cycle of birth and death forever. This nectarian, this blissful knowledge of that you have. Oh man, you have possibility to achieve much greater things than what you know. You have an ability to gain God also in this life. These things are made available to you by these ashrams through their series of lectures and talks and sharing of knowledge. But the problem today is many people are not aware of it. They are not alert towards it. And one thing is that they are not alert towards it. They don't know many things which is around. But the bigger problem is than that is many people have incorrect knowledge. I keep saying that in my podcast WhatsApp group also, to the listeners who's ever interact with me, that if you have no knowledge, it's still easier for you to gain knowledge once you get the required capability, once you get the required qualification. But more difficult than that is if you have incorrect knowledge. Correcting it is very, very difficult. Sometimes it takes lifetime of effort. Sometimes lifetime of efforts are also not sufficient to correct our incorrect understanding. That's why I keep telling, in the group also, I have scolded some people when they come back to me with information, that please ensure that you choose the source of information correctly first. Everything that is available cannot become your source of information. Everything which is available there are nonsense things also. If you choose nonsense things as your source of confirmation, source of knowledge, your source of information, then tell me that information which you have gathered from it will also remain nonsense. Means what? Your memory is full of nonsensical things. The choice is yours. So please make a concentrated effort, a proper effort to choose your source of information, choose your source of knowledge. Why? Because correcting an incorrect knowledge gained or gathered is very, very difficult. I think I gave you this example before also, but I'll give you again so that you can remember what I said there. One is when we store things in our computer has got limited hard disk. Some people, what they do as a mistake is that they store everything with a thought that I will select later on what to delete. And trust me, the later on never comes. Now just think, vis-a-vis that, the when will that person wake up to make that decision what to keep and what to delete? When the computer will throw up an error saying that insufficient memory to store your file. That's when this person will wake up and say, oh man, I have stored so many things, now I'll have to go through all of them. Now you just think, it would have been a few minute task initially for you to just spend additional 1 minute or 2 minutes or maybe 5 minutes to go through it and decide whether to keep it or not. But now, since you have not done that, how much amount of effort it will require for you to clean it up? I'll give you one live example. Somebody known to me said that people sending email started to bounce and started giving an error that email inbox is full. So he said, I just kept on storing in the emails there. Now I'm sitting down. It took that person around 6 days of 5-6 hours a day to delete 1,000 mails. How long it would have taken if you would have just spent additional 5 minutes to clean it? This is what we do with our memory also. We will wake up only when the memory starts to return with a symbol that sorry, not enough memory to keep the things. And then they say, Swamiji, oh Acharyaji, sir, I do understand what you're saying. I want to keep it in the memory also, but I don't know why I keep forgetting. You keep forgetting why? There is no space left in your memory to store. You have stored so many things. Memory space is limited, my friend. In your lifetime you get limited memory space. You can choose whether you want to keep redundant, useless, nonsense stuffs, or you want to fill it up with the correct stuffs. I learned it from our Guruji, Puja Swamiji, Puja Maharaji Swami Subodhanand ji, that a seeker has to be alert and vigilant. Alert and vigilant for what? That what this seeker entertains and what this seeker keeps in the memory. If the world is filled in the memory, scriptures won't be able to be stored in that memory at all. Or I would say, scriptural or spiritual knowledge won't be, this person won't be able to store spiritual knowledge in that memory at all. Spiritual knowledge won't have any space in that person's memory to be stored. That's what I meant by that. So that's why, hey, the thing is wrong knowledge. I'm giving you some wrong notions which people have. People do come to us and ask also. They have come to our Guruji and asked them also. People have these kind of misconception, that one of the misconceptions I'm bringing you, that I heard that Mahabharat should not be kept at home. So Puja Guruji asked, why is that actually? By the way, and why is that, and where did you hear that from? Swamiji, I heard that if you keep Mahabharat in home, your home will also become one of the place for, or your family members to fight. There will be Mahabharat in your home every day. So Swamiji jokingly told that person, is there, have you kept Mahabharat then? He said, no, Swamiji, I have not. So is there no Mahabharat happening in your home today? What are you talking about? I do not know where these misconceptions has been stored. Probably those people who want to put down Sanatan Dharma and want to destroy our culture must have planted such kind of wrong misconceptions, so that we don't generate kind of respect to our scriptures at all. Some people say, keeping Ramayana, you may end up leaving your wife. What nonsense are you talking about? These things are completely incorrect. And the other kind of misconception is that, you look at this man, he was perfectly all right. He started going to satsang. Oh man, he started going for spiritual teachings. Definitely there is some problem in his home. These are the kind of talks which happen outside. In 18th chapter, Bhagwan himself is going to bring up so clearly in the 18th chapter, where Bhagwan says we should not live with such kind of misconceptions at all. These kind of misconceptions are wrong. We must avoid such kind of sources of information, so that we don't end up losing our spiritual knowledge and the ability or the opportunity to gain spiritual knowledge, so to say. Bhagwan, and in the in the 18th verse, Bhagwan says, is in the verses there, that those people who teach Bhagavad Gita, I tell you, they are actually doing the best service towards me. Bhagwan Krishna in the chapter 18 verses 68 and 69 brings it out very beautifully. Ya imam paramam guhyam mad bhakteshva vidhasyati bhaktim mai param kritva mame vaishyatya samshayah न च तस्मान् मनुष्येषु कश्चिन् मे प्रियकृत्तमः भविता न च मे तस्माद् अन्यः प्रियतरो भुवि. In the verses 18, Bhagwan brings it out so beautifully that those people who make effort to spread this knowledge, what I have given to Arjun in the war field as Bhagavad Gita, who spread my teachings, or who distribute, or who what you call that, give this teaching to others, spread this teaching to others, as what I have given to Arjun and during this warfield as Bhagavad Gita, actually they are doing nothing but my supreme devotion. They are actually they are actually offering their life as supreme devotion and for me, and it is for sure that this person is going to achieve me. And there is no one, and much bigger than that, dear to me is so much. This person is actually dearest to me. And actually there is no one who's going to be more dear to me than this person. And that is what Bhagwan says in the verses 68 and 69 in chapter 18, about the one who actually he shares the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, what has been spoken by Bhagwan to Arjun, given by Bhagwan to Arjun in the war field, as a life-giving science to everyone, so that everyone can benefit. Everyone can work towards correcting their life strategies, correcting their life thought process, correcting their personality while living here itself. Rather, I would use this word, invest in them correctly. That is what I would want to use. That one who gives this knowledge to others, Bhagavan says, is actually very, very dear to me. That's one thing. So it starts with knowing about spirituality first, then uh, giving the knowledge of spirituality also has to be in a particular manner. The one who gives the knowledge to others by way of in a way that it generates interest in the listeners, that I want to listen more, I want to listen more. That kind of a way is definitely the correct way of giving the knowledge about spirituality, so that the other person also generates interest in it. That's very, very important. It is important for a spiritual teacher to not only give the knowledge in such a way or share the knowledge in such a way that the interest is generated in the listeners, but also that there is a way that, what do you call that, it also wants to work towards gaining that particular knowledge. That's very important for a spiritual teacher. Actually, not only gives the knowledge in such a way that the student accepts it or is aware of this subject, but also generates interest in that at spiritual what do you call that, teachings. One is that, yes, information has been given, so what? But mere information is not enough. So a responsibility of a spiritual teacher is also to give information in such a way that the listeners generate interest towards that spiritual teaching. And the second point which happens is that not only interest is generated, but spiritual teacher spends time to actually develop the interest also. So one is giving knowledge of the spirituality, what spiritual knowledge talks about, or what spirituality is all about. Then also generating interest in spirituality. Not only stop there, but also developing and nurturing that interest in spirituality of that particular listener. That is what a role of a teacher is actually, there. And also from time to time clarify things which come in the mind of a spiritual what do you call that, listener. That is also very important for a spiritual teacher in terms of the role what he or she does. This is the role of what great masters have created as ashrams or spiritual centers must do, that not only make the listeners aware of the actually spiritual arena of what knowledge is there in the spiritual world, generate interest in the listener also towards the spiritual subjects, and not only stop with that, but also nurture that interest which is there by way of continuous series of talks and things available to the listeners, so that they can and not only know about it not only have interest and stop there, but also have the ability to nurture that interest and walk inch by inch towards that at interested field, so that doesn't fall down or fall away somewhere. But remember, even though they have got interest now, but they still haven't got the acceptance. The swikriti is not there for the spiritual teachings right now, but interest has been generated. So it feels interesting, and slowly, gradually, that interest is also increasing. And from time to time, if satsangs and talks and teachings are available for this person, and then what happens, and that interest which is sprouted in the listener, in the seeker, starts to get water to sprout out as a plant, that which has been seeded in the listener, not sprouted, seeded in the listener, which is lying as a seed in the listener. That interest which is lying as in the seed form in the listener starts to get the right moisture and water to start to sprout out as a plant. That is what, or this much it is done over there by the spiritual centers and all. Once that happens, then man will start to get into assessment. It will start to assess as that how much time I should give to spirituality. and how much money I can spend towards it. Then he or she will see his convenience, and will also see that, is, do I have enough time to give it, or can I give more time to it or not. That assessment this person will do from a spiritual perspective, so to say. The two aspects of assessment this person will do is how much time I can give towards it, and by giving that much of time, and by putting that much of effort, what am I going to gain from this. So we will see what happens when we see the people coming for satsangs and sessions and all at ashram level, is that at first we this person will go to a particular what do you call that, good person or a sajjan, so to say, where he will come to know that there is a satsang going on, and then this person will start for going with that person first, starts to develop interest towards that, and start to come for sessions regularly year after year, maybe one session in a year, probably, so to say. And he will start then going for a longer period of time, maybe one satsang first, then go for a series of lectures, then, and start to nurture that interest in such a way that starts to go and attend, and long sessions like 15-day session and all those kind of things, which we call it shivir, the camps, spiritual retreat camps, so to say, spiritual camps this person will start to attend. And that once that interest is nurtured so much, and then after that this person will make an assessment, will I be able to stay in an ashram environment, can I stay for a longer time and see if I can study. Those kind of assessments and this person will do before starting or setting out into a spiritual journey. The last two steps we spoke about, if the amount of effort put by this person is in the required quantum, if this person puts enough effort towards this this spiritual endeavor, trust me, I'm telling you, spirituality will definitely be gained by this person. Those things which we are awakened towards, those things we are awakened towards, and we start at putting small steps, even if it's small steps, putting towards that, trust me, it will be definitely gained by us at some point in time. This journey, spiritual journey, is long. Maybe for some people it may take many lives, so to say, but if efforts are put correctly, achievement is surely possible. That's a word which Gita ji also gives us. This is the way we can achieve great things in life, even in the worldly arena also. That if we think that this thing is definitely going to give me correct and move me higher in life, have reach greater heights in life, we must adapt that at topic, that object, that subject, so that we can move towards this and put our whole hearted efforts to gain that. The way we achieve objects in the world, in the same way, with those efforts only we can achieve. Those efforts mean not the efforts towards the object, huh? With those amount of efforts, if we can gain objects in the world, then why do you think it is difficult to gain the self in life if you put correct efforts? And Bhagwan has brought out the same thing in these two verses as what we just read about, or the verse number 62 and 63. Bhagwan has brought out these same verses. But Bhagwan has started at a particular level. The first point Bhagwan brought out in the verse is Dhyayato. That Bhagwan started at this verse from the thinking, or reflecting upon the thinking about the particular object. And why I said that is meaning what the initial steps which I spoke about in terms of theory of adoption, we have to understand first, so that we can reach and understand what Bhagwan means by Dhyayato. Dhyayato means what? That first step Bhagwan is bringing out is that the person starts to think about the object. Now, trust me, from where you start to walk towards putting effort for gaining an object, and that is actually when you start knowing about the object. Dhyayato happens afterwards, right? Once we gain a knowledge about the objects, then, and then only we can, and the remaining steps we can understand. So before dhyayato, there are certain steps which you need to understand. And I told you in Bhagavad Gita, the way Bhagwan explains, see, Arjun is a very learned man, by the way. For Arjun, Bhagwan starting from dhyayato is very good enough. But for us to understand, when when we really translate it into our life also, we'll know immediately a man doesn't start to think about an object. It cannot be the first step. That means what? In Dhyayato, Bhagwan has packed many things prior to that, which we need to understand so that we can understand Dhyayato. Dhyayato Vishayan Punsa, so to say, to understand. So, first thing to understand is you need to know about the object first. Then you have to attach importance to that object, that this object is going to beautify my life. Then you have to do the assessment of that object, that do I have enough time and effort available to spend to gain that object, and is that object going to be really useful for me? Is that object, the way it is being shown as a utility, it is actually there or not? So those things comes first before we actually start to adopt an object and start to think over it. So I would use the word adopt, the bigger word to replace adopt is, then only we reach a level to accept an object. See, swikriti happens only after that. That is very important for to understand. That's the reason I explained you so much as a preset for us to reach the first word of these particular two verses. After knowing an object is that when we start to think over the object. And remember, when think over the object also, you need to attach one more word to it. It's called Shobhan Buddhi Purvak. Shobhan Buddhi Purvak means with the thought, preset thought, that this is going to add beauty to my life. With that thought, we start thinking. That is what Bhagwan meant by dhyayato. So if we start thinking on an object that this is going to add beauty to my life, that means the moment I attach that thought to me, I told you in the last sessions that I've already placed that object in the list of important things in my life, or I have put importance to that object in my life. Since I put importance to that object, that is when I will start the process of thinking first, then chasing. That is how we need to understand this particular verse. So if you see, once we start thinking, now this is also important for us all to know. There are so many things which come into our eye. Many we don't even take it to our memory. Many we don't even remember. Every object we come across, we don't remember. So sang cannot happen with every object. Bhagwan says na dhyayato vishyan punsah sangha te upajayate. These 2 points I'll take a lot of time. Why? Because remember one thing, one point I want to bring out with these is that why I'm spending so much of time at the level of dhyayatah, at the level of sangha, we still have the ability to exercise control and avert a drastic situation. But once it crosses that zero barrier of sangha, then remember, without external help, it cannot be done. Why do you think I'm spending so much time to explain it? So that we get it so clearly that these are the things which are important and for or us to understand. So Bhagwan says is we start thinking about an object, and once we start thinking about about an object for a longer period of time, it is natural that the mind starts to associate itself, which is Bhagwan is calling as sangha. But there is no, we need to bring other sides of it also for us to understand what Bhagwan is trying to bring out here. So just go to the deeper meaning of that. There is no man in this world, no person in this world in whose intellect and memory that the thinking of objects does not happen. There is no one in this world at all. Since these five senses are there, or I would use this word this way, as long as the five senses are there, it is impossible that objects don't enter our mind and intellect through these senses. These senses are actually open gateways. So it is not possible, not possible for anyone at all, that through these senses objects will not enter our mind, and from mind to intellect and memory, that's not possible. But the point we need to highlight here is that everything which enters our mind through our senses, we don't get associated with all of them. With every thought, we don't associate ourselves. We don't even know how many things enter our mind, how many things. And a man also, after looking at certain objects, even though it has entered the mind means what? It has gone to the intellect and recognized the object, right? It cannot happen unless and until from senses it enters the mind, from mind it enters the intellect, from intellect to memory, comes back and recalls that this is the object. And that's what the BMI chart was all about, and why we put B, M, and I in that manner. That's how the things work. And according to the vasanas, as it will go and come back, define whether it is of interest to me also or not, according to the vasanas. Anyway, we'll explain that some other time, but we'll just go and see what Bhagwan is trying to say here. So there are many times it is seen that many objects enter a person's intellect, mind, intellect, and memory, but association doesn't happen. We forget it immediately also. That's why if we say this point, and if you understand and what Bhagwan has said in this way, that just because of thinking association happens, then we have not understood what Bhagwan said correctly. That's not correct at all, right? So just because we think of an object, and association doesn't happen, and that's also correct. If so if that happens, then it is going to be very difficult for a man to, if just by thinking of something in association is going to happen, it is going to be very difficult for a man to live with these senses in this world. So it doesn't seem what you call that, practical, so to say. It doesn't seem practical, well, that just because objects enter through the senses to my mind, and I start thinking everything will get associated to me, then that doesn't become practical. So to answer that, to make it sound practical, to understand it practically what is correct, we have to understand that when we think of an object, associated it in the thought with two additional things, that this is going to add beauty to my life, and by having this I am going to gain happiness in my life. That is when association with that object starts to build up. That is when association in the intellect and memory with that particular object starts to begin to happen. A man not only thinks of the object that with the thought that it is going to give me happiness, but rather thinks again and again consistently, and starts to dream of happiness coming from that object, which is why it starts to generate something called deep association in us. We get deeply attached to that thing, right? Starts to see that if I miss this object, I am going to lose on the opportunity of happiness in my life. Then it becomes a firm thought, it becomes a kind of an option in the mind, opened up and starts to strengthen, that if I gain this object, everything in my life will become all right. If I get this object, I will start to become happy forever. That's why I think some movies said, then they lived happily ever after is the line which they comes, which I do not know anyway. I don't want to go into that area. When with this kind of a thought process, a person starts to think of the object, then for sure association starts to build up. Mind and intellect starts to associate itself with that object, and immediately the thought comes that without this object my life will be incomplete. Now tie it back to where Bhagwan started. Why Bhagwan started Sthitapragya Lakshana with that line, Atmanyev Atmana Tushtaha. He has no incompleteness in his life. He's ever fulfilled, ever contented. Because this person is like that, he has no space for any object to get into his head at all. And remember one thing, why I said that, when I spoke about the practicality and impracticality, thinking about objects keeps on happening in our life, by the way, because a man during his life also cannot be separated from his five senses. Goswami Tulsidas ji says is, Goswami Tulsidas ji actually, puts up a complaint in front of Bhagwan that scripture says that don't think about the object. But the actual situation is that mind cannot live without objects even for a second. He says in his Vinay Patrika, विषय वारी मन मीन भिन्न नहीं होत कबहु पल एक. In his Vinay Patrika 102, he says, is the verse number 102, he says, is Vishay Vari, object is like water, man mean, and mind is like fish. And both of them cannot be separated even for a second. If thinking of objects is a problem, then that means there is no solution for such a problem. It is actually not a problem. Actual problem is that when we start thinking of the object with an added thought that this is going to add beauty to my life, this is going to give me happiness in my life, then we start to think that this is going to complete me in my life. And our intellect, due to ignorance, starts to see fulfillment in that object, starts to see completeness of life in that object. If yes, that is the thing, then this person starts to walk towards hugging that object, so to say. Hugging means that, gaining that object in life, starts to walk towards that. Arjun got this is teaching. Why? Because Arjun's, state in life was also that. If you remember the first chapter, Arjun was not able to see solace anywhere. He was not able to see peace anywhere. He was not able to continue into any work at all. That's why in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan says is that, oh, you with your eyes, with your senses, all the senses, look at the world as much as possible, but attach two things along with it. Also, along with seeing the objects, see the kind of sorrow and problems hidden in those objects, which Bhagavan says, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshanudarshanam. He says now that this life is full of these kind of sorrow and these kind of errors, these kind of issues, these kind of problems, these kind of pain. It is riddled with this. Is that, these objects, even if I gain, I'm going to also inherit the kind of sorrow which comes with it. Bhagwan says, please open your eyes and look at that. Our Upanishad, our Mundaka Upanishad says it, our Shruti says it so beautifully. Mundaka Upanishad in, Pratham Mundak, Dvitiya Khand, 12th mantra says that Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmano Nirveda Mayan Astya Kritak Kritena Tad Vijnanartham Sa Gurumeva Vigachet Samit Panim Shrotriyam Brahmanishtham. It says, Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmana Nirvedam Ayat. Bhagwan says to us that look at the world, but with a careful examining eye. Parikshalokan. Always keep inspecting the world. Always keep this thing on, that you are constantly inspecting everything which you see, everything which you experience from your senses. If you constantly do that with your alertness and vigilance, hence you are constantly examining this world with that kind of a thought process behind, at the back end thought at the mind, trust me, you are sure to gain dispassion in this world. But the only condition is that you must do this inspection honestly, with complete honesty. Do this inspection. Trust me, you will definitely gain dispassion in this life, while in this world, while living here itself. When I say do with complete honesty means what? Don't do as a bhogi. Don't do the inspection as a bhogi. Bhogi means don't do as an enjoyer. Don't do this inspection and as a one gaining happiness from that. Don't do that. Do the inspection as an inspector, as an examiner. Do this inspection. Trust me, if you carefully do inspection of this world, you will surely come to know that this world has nothing to offer you except sorrow and actually errors and fatalities in life. Actually speaking, the only thing which can give you freedom, this world completely binds. Please understand that very well. So Bhagwan says, trust me, you will definitely gain dispassion, because in this world actually there is nothing in this world which is worthy of your raga, with your attachment. There is nothing worthy of your attachment apart from God. If there is nothing worthy of your attachment in this world, then how can you have attachment towards object? If somebody wants to remain blind, it's a different story. You can continue to do that. Good luck to you. But if you really look at the that this is the only solution for you in the world, that if you inspect the world correctly, dispassion is surely going to happen. Trust me, it will get you that result what you really want in life. So if somebody actually, because of ignorance, seeing actually that something is going to add, some object is going to add beauty to my life, some object is going to give me happiness in my life, and I see a resolve by gaining this object in my life. When a person thinks of an object like that and continuously thinks over it, or does constant thinking over it, or thinks over it again and again, then trust me, what Bhagwan said in this verse, as he highlighted it absolutely spot on, that association with that object will definitely build up in you. Remember, by momentarily thinking on an object, association is not built up. That's not what Bhagwan means here. So the theory of adoption, which management and in this world, which in the world of management is such a big thing. You see, this theory of adoption and the way Bhagavad Gita brings it up that way, the theory of adoption. But yes, remember, in this verse, the actual purpose of Bhagwan bringing it up is in the spiritual arena, and Bhagwan continues this teaching, doesn't stop at where theory of adoption and stops. Bhagwan continues further and dwells down further and says, Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha. From the association, what is generated within us, what develops within us, or what arises within us is something called desire. Bhagwan says is that desire starts to sprout out in us, that I want to chase to gain that particular object. Bhagwan is in this verse. Bhagwan has not spoken about the assessment part. We need to understand that From assessment only this comes up from there. So assessment happens, then what comes is sangat sanjayate kama. We need to build that here so that we understand this verse in completion. And behind every resolve we take in life, or every chase is we do in life, every effort we do in life, if the first thing which happens is when we start to develop association with that object in our mind. The moment we start developing association with an object in life, it converts into something called a sankalpa in life, a resolve in life that I want it. Everything which we pay attention towards, we don't desire each one of them. Remember, the conversion from association to desire also takes time. It's not that I have an association, tomorrow itself it will convert into desire. It takes time. The meaning of the word sangha is actually, we need to understand that it's called the interest we generate in the object, the ruchi we have in the object. And desire is such a thing that once it generates in you, you will have to fulfill it. You will have to fulfill it. Every association and does not or convert into desire. In our scriptures, it is said that once we resolve that I want it, and that desire becomes strong, and that desire becomes strengthens in me, it becomes a deep desire in me. That is what that we start to work towards in terms of chasing towards or putting effort towards that. At the moment we make a resolve that I want it, from there desire starts to generate, starts to arise. And till here, the theory which is going on in one particular direction. But going further from here, Bhagwan does not want us to actually run after the desire. So you see this, please remember the purpose of this verse. The purpose of this verse is not to tell you that from here run towards desire. Bhagwan is showing you the ladder of fall. That's why you will see Bhagwan from here changed the tempo and converted that into the where when this desire leads us to fall. Because the purpose of Gita Ji's verse by given by Bhagwan is not to make us achieve the desire. Otherwise, Bhagwan would have said, okay, Sangat Sanjayate Kama, then after that Kama, what happens? What effort to be put in? Bhagwan is not explaining that. Bhagwan is trying to show you the other side of it. What is the problem? What arises by reaching this step? That is what Bhagwan is trying to show. Bhagwan says is that from here the ladder of fall starts. So Dhyayata first came, Sanjayate Kama came, and Bhagwan is now trying to show you the other side. That from here, if you can turn towards Vairagya, it's very good for you. If not, what happens to you is that what Bhagwan is trying to show here. From Kama also, person can turn towards dispassion. Bhagwan's purpose in this particular verse is not to turn the seeker towards attachment to raga, rather to turn the seeker towards vairagya, dispassion. That is why Bhagwan further in this verse tries to show what happens if we continue to hanker such thoughts. That is what Bhagwan shows in the verse further, which we will see in the next session. कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि श्रीमन्नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। ओम तत्सत्।